Hello and welcome to this TIA series on technology impact assessment. My name is Katina Michael, and this interview is part of the Australia-India Joint Impact Assessment of Critical Technologies for Peace and Stability, a project funded by the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade in Australia, and it's been ongoing since November 2024. Today gives me great pleasure to welcome Professor Marijn Janssen. Welcome, Marijn.
Thank you for inviting me and for being here. This is a very important topic. We are always challenging with new technology, how we can use them. We make all kinds of imaginations of new technology, but we have to put them in a realistic view. So that's always a little bit difficult.
It sure is, and I could think of no better person to come. You're a professor of information and communication technology and governance, and you're part of an interesting faculty. The name of that faculty is Technology Policy and Management at TU Delft in the Netherlands. And I wonder what you make of this notion of technology impact assessment. But the first thing I want to ask you is, what are you engaged in presently?
Oops, that's a difficult question, what I'm doing currently. Of course, there's a lot of artificial intelligence technology that's going on, and that's also a lot of hype in it. It's moving from general large language models to now agentic AI, and it will also change in the future. And when you talk about the faculty, the technology, policy, and management, the three aspects that are going together, it's not only about the technology. I think currently, when you look at AI, there's a lot of technology push because they're trying to push it. And when you look at the real-time applications, then people are a little bit disappointed often. That's why people also saying from, oh, there might be an AI decline coming up in the future. And that's also what we have to understand with that. We have to understand the technology, okay, but we have also to understand how the whole policy for those kinds of technology can be created, and also how can it be managed in such a way that we can have the benefits from it and not the negative aspects. And too often we have too simplistic views on it because technology is great. I'm always joking when I look at AI. Well, the type of AI what we use, neural network, we used already 20 years ago. It's just that the situation has changed. We have more data, we have the processing power. That means we can also go to other type of applications, but that doesn't mean that everybody needs to use AI. And sometimes you might not want to use AI. So the opposite turn from, oh yeah, that's technology, but we decide not to use it. That could also be an outcome. That might be not easy acceptable for the people not using it as an outcome, but it can be very important. Or you can also say from, oh yeah, this technology is not there yet. So we pose requirements on the technology, and if we meet the requirements, we can make a next step. And that's also a way to deal with the technology. I'm very practical, as you can see. I put it currently to the decisions also, but that also will ensure that there will be all kinds of entrepreneurs who will take that technology, will improve it, and will ensure that it will meet your requirements in a couple of years from now. And that helps also to ensure that the whole technology will be developed in the right direction and not in the wrong direction, to phrase it like that. That's always a little bit challenging over there. So I view it as, you have to know a lot. Because what I'm saying, you have to know the technology, else you can't put the requirements on it. You have to think about possible applications, and applications can also change because we often think about, people are using in this way. Now we're going to use it also in this way. No, no, no. You have to look far away, in 10 years from now or something like that, and how to arrive at that stage for that. And you have to ensure that you also know the context you're doing it. Because if you would go to taxing or you would go to selling, well, the technology will be used in a different way, and you have also different requirements on it and different expectations what you're looking for. So you have to know the domain and don't try to be generic. And it means also that a general purpose technology, because often we talk about general purpose technology. AI is a general purpose technology that consists of at least five different streams that are behind it. You have to have a little bit of knowledge about it, else you can't do it. And the funny part is that we're talking with AI about the technology. But remember, in 5 or 10 years ago, we talked about blockchain. Do we still talk about blockchain? Well, we still use it, we're still developing it, but most of the time we don't call them blockchain projects anymore. We call them, we have a research project in food transparency. Well, we call it food transparency, but we don't talk about the specific technology that is behind it. So now we turned it into the possible benefit, the possible
Mm.
applications, and then the technology has to adjust it. I think we're talking too much about currently AI, and that tells us something about the status of it. eh, and we have to turn it into where we can use it for and how we can use it. And that means also you have to have a variety of different types of technologies, sub-technologies that are part of those general purpose technology. And maybe I talk too much about technology today, but I think technology is very important, and often there's a technology push from people who don't know the technology. Might sound a bit strange, but it's easier for people who don't know the technology to talk about it and to say, "Oh, it can be do this, and have all kinds of future scenarios that might not be realistic." And then when you translate it to the short time and how you realize it, it might also be going to the gap from, oh, they try to use it and then they're disappointed. We always, in our research, we always try to look for the next step, because else you get on the short term with that without knowledge. But it requires a lot of knowledge. And knowledge requires investment because you have to spend the time on it and reading, prototyping, trying it a little bit. That's also part of it. It's more than only reading books. It's also about doing it in to practice, and don't use the whole world as a sandbox, like some of the companies doing, but just use it in your own sandbox. Just try it, gain feedback, learn from it. That's a little bit how I would look at it.
Very wise words. I think the long-term vision is missing with respect to AI and understanding that in organizations. I've spoken to so many in the past who have said, oh, it's easy to get a project sponsor to agree to a business case. Just put the word AI in and you'll be given the funding and the money. And of course, that's very short term and narrow-sighted if that's how money is being handed over in large business cases, internal or external to an organization. But I really value what you're saying, especially from the perspective that you come, which sounds quite interdisciplinary, if I might say. Uh, this faculty that you have of technology policy and management, as you said, the three, it's not just pushing the one. Okay, the technology is important, but equally as important as the policy and management. And we often forget the rest of this. But I like your assessment of where things are at today. You gave some great examples about the blockchain, for example, and our relabeling of blockchain initiatives, such as food transparency. And I think those value propositions are clearer, in fact, because it acknowledges actually converging technologies in the background as well. With regards to specifically looking at technology impact assessment, and you gave us a wonderful preamble, can you give us examples from your work of where you may have come close to applying technology impact assessment or actually applied it, perhaps in an organizational setting or elsewhere?
Yeah, what we often do is work with policymakers who are looking at the potential of the technology and look at what can happen for it. And then what happens always with technology assessment, that it's not the assessment of a single technology, but it's the assessment of the whole situation you're talking about. Because, for example, when you look at the future that can happen within a certain domain, the technology can change the practical domain in that. And when you think about the impact, you have to think about the transformative power of the technology. So how will it transform the future? And is it also desirable? The desirability for that? They're all components of the impact assessment. So I always view it in a very broad way, technology impact assessment that just goes beyond what people do it. It's not from, oh yeah, we look at AI and then we say those are the benefits and those are the risk or something like that. Well, then you ask also large language models to generate those for you. No, it's about understanding the long term from if we start using AI, how will it impact our whole digital society? Because the society will change and it will become common and we even don't know it's hidden in our smartphones or something like that. And nowadays we'll have a lot of AI that we're already using without knowing it for that, and it will change our digital society, how we collaborate, how we do things with each other. And when we think right now, then a lot of yeah, more structured jobs can be automated using AI, but also the unstructured jobs can be supported by AI. You already see it take over or supported are different ways. So also in impact assessment, you have to think that the technology can be applied and used in different ways, and that it will have also implications on it, and that the impact will also be different. Because if you use it for supporting people, that means you also have to train and educate the people to ensure that they're able to do it. They should be as smart. That means also you have higher educated people who are well trained in this domain, ready for it, which is completely different when you take over a simple job like buying something for you or ensuring that the temperature is well in your house when you come home and it's cold outside or something like that, or warm outside, from which is completely different. So you have to think also about the diversity of possible applications. You have to deal with the uncertainty also, because yeah, the future is not certain. We can go different directions in it, and you have to deal with it with all. Yeah, it takes a lot of knowledge and a lot of expertise, and that's why we also like to work in groups of people, because people have different expertise, and they all bring something on the table. What's important, and together we might do an impact assessment, but one person on their own, oops, then I think there's a risk of groupthink, there's a risk of only taking your own discipline or even interdiscipline into account or something like that. You have to view it from a broad point of perspective. And nowadays you can also just ask one of the large language models for, oh, can you do an technology assessment for me? You get a nice answer and a nice report for it. And probably that report will be put somewhere away and nobody will read it when you generate it like that, because it's not
Yes.
translated that well. It doesn't take it into account what really matters. And that's also what is very important, that you combine everything together.
These are great points and lead me to the next question I had, which was how do we gather evidence and what methodologies do we use for technology impact assessments? What would you suggest?
Yeah, that's always also a very difficult question you are asking, because I like also the multi-method. I don't think there's one dominating method you use. You always have to use different methods. I just talked about groups. Well, you can say that's
Yes.
also a method, a group session. You're doing things together, and that can be within a country, but it can also be worldwide. They have different type of things. It can be different disciplines that are part of it, but be assured that you avoid the potential bias and those kinds of things in it. But I think group sessions are part of it, because sometimes you just want to show it. Just build a simulation or a prototype of it, or something like that, that you can show it. At our faculty, we also build sometimes games and people can experience it. Oh, you think the future is like this? Let's play it. and then encounter it, and then they at the end they're starting, I don't want this future. Well, they become realistic for that, yeah. Or it's also possible, oh, I love this future. It's the other way around, it's also possible. But sometimes you have to feel it. You have to show it. You have to touch it, making it very specific. We're University of Technology. We're quite pragmatic. We want to be able to do it, not the high level talks about it. We want to really show it also in practice and operation in it. And also you have to make the calculations, of course, when you do the impact about the risk assessment calculations, but also about potential investment, cost benefits, and those kind of things. And also often simplistic views are taken for that. Think about a whole AI discussion from, oh yeah, we're going to invest in AI and we have 1 million euros. Whoops, when I'm thinking about the large data centers, the chips that are needed for it, then much more might be needed. So it's all dependent also on what you want and also about how you translate it back to you, what is needed for that. So that's also the perception about it. I like the term AI very much because everybody has another perception on it. When you start talking about it, yeah, after 5 or 10 minutes, you often find out that one person looks in a different way than another person, and they have different expectations. And one looks at the risk, one looks at the potential, one looks at the large AI applications, sometimes one look at customized application. So it can be completely different for that. I love that variety because you need that for technology assessment for to have a broad understanding and to take it also into account. There are a lot of variables that come into play, a lot of disciplines that come into play, and for your questions, the methods, oops, we need also a variety of methods over there. And it's all dependent on what we want to discover and what we want to see. Because if you take one method, you might not see everything. And that's why, as a researcher, we always have a limitation section. Researchers know that.
I love the socio-materiality context that you gave us about the tangible items in eliciting key research questions within a group context, for example. And I really like the diversity of representation, perhaps taking on different roles in the technology impact assessment and what's its purpose. Do you have favorite elements or disciplinary perspectives that you think should be in a TIA, in a technology impact assessment? What might those be? You mentioned the different facets of risks, of benefits, of costs. Are there particular perspectives or particular elements within a TIA when performed by a group of people that you like to see in them?
Well, I think what's very important is having the basic right at the beginning. When you talk about a new technology, you have to understand the idiosyncratic characteristics of the technology. What makes it, what can it do, what can't it do, something like that. A little bit the boundaries, but also the characteristics. So you have to have a basic understanding. Then the other way around, because now I'm a bit technology driven, you also have to take it from the policy point of view. Oh, what do you expect over there? What can you have? And what do you want to take into account? Because if you say we want to do everything, well, that will be problematic. You can't do everything for that. So you need to be focused on what you really want. You have to have a good question, underlying research question or a policy question that you want to answer over there. So you have to find also your boundaries, what you want to explore and what you don't want to explore. So we often are beginning very broad, and then we have to bring it together. And then if we bring it together, we can select the methods and make the next step of it. And I think if you always have the same method, then you will end up also with the same conclusions. So you don't want that. Or if you have the same people always involved for that. So you need to have a variety of that. And what personally I think is very important is always have people who oppose in it, criticasters,
Yes.
people who have a different opinion in it. And there's a reason why they have a different opinion. It's not that they are bad persons or something like that, or they're against the technology. No, there's often a reason behind it. So you want to get them also involved in it. You want to have a variety of opinions, persons involved that can do the job. Else you can't grow towards something and have a good understanding of it. And then I think also with the impact assessment, at the end, there should be no single impact assessment, but a variety. It's about having the right scenarios. This can happen, this can happen. This might have different impact. Or we might have also a way to steer at the end, because in my view, it can also be an instrument to steer in the right direction. It might not be originally designed for that purpose, but it can be used for that purpose. It's also dependent on that. And that means also with the impact assessment, it's not only about saying the impact is €1. Yeah, well, so you already hear it when you have such an answer. You can't do anything with it. No, it's about the whole story. That you have the background, the whole understanding, what's behind it. It's also not a summary of a one page, which can also be generated by AI. No, it's the whole report or the whole explanation that is important for that. Else you don't have a decent impact assessment. Impact assessment is yeah, it's difficult. It's not easy for that because you require a lot of, and that's why, yeah, why I think you're doing also this research because it's not easy, it's difficult, and you have to take the complexity into account. Yeah, you have to take the uncertainty into account, and you have to have the different approaches into account. Of course, you have to think about your end result. What do you want to have as end results? What will help the people also? How can you support the people, which can be quite different from that, and that determines also what you're going to do. So in fact, it's I see what you see it in my explanation. I view it as a kind of complete research setup from the beginning till the end, and that's yeah, we know it can be different, and it might also change during the process because you discover new things and you find it out, and you might make another choice.
I love your perspective of bringing on adversarial or critical commentary or alternate habits of mind in these groups to get diverse perspectives that would inform a technology impact assessment. Uh, could I ask, who are the main stakeholders related to TIA, to technology impact assessment?
Whoa, another very difficult question about it. I think everybody can be a stakeholder. And that means you need people who know the technology, people who know something about assessment, people who know the domain, but also think about simple thing like inclusion. Because if different groups are affected, you want to ensure that those different groups are also included, because they might see it in another way. But I remember sometimes we had a discussion about the use of blockchain for ensuring privacy, and then they started understanding blockchain better, and then they were thinking at the end, from that was a group session, by the way, with different stakeholders in it. At the end, some of the stakeholders were thinking, yes, at the beginning I liked it, but at the end I don't like it anymore because it will also bring other things in it. It's not only that our privacy is guaranteed, but also that the transparency or the openness goes down at the same time. So we have to think about how to do it and how to use the technology in a certain way. Whereas other groups in that session, they liked the idea. So we had quite a variety of people in the group from different backgrounds, having different expertise. It's about a variety. So when you talk about stakeholders, that's why I say it's a very difficult question. You have to think about including a variety of stakeholders. What are the criteria for including them? You always have to think about inclusion because else you might forget about something that might be very important. That's the same as having criticasters included, what I was told before. You also need to ensure that there are people were a little bit neutral and there are people who are a little bit less neutral involved because yeah, there might be software vendors that might be involved in that because they can tell a lot about the potential or what they think will be the potential about it. But there might also be people who are completely have a different objective or view involved. So you need also there a variety with that. And sometimes it's quite interesting. Sometimes we do it in workshops that we have separate groups, and at the end, each group will do a presentation, and then they have completely different views on it. Sometimes they're similar, but often they're different with that. And that's nice because it's about also having a variety of views. And that's why the different stakeholders are so important to bring them on the table for that. And what I would say always have stakeholders from the business, from the government, from science, from at least those three groups. But you have to delve into more detail because governments, you probably want to have both the policy makers and both people who are doing the real job and are involved in it. So you have to go into a society. You want to have people who are living in a rich neighborhood or we living near the sea or downtown or something like that. They will have also different opinions and different views on it. So the variety, in my view, is very important at a high level. But be careful that not only those are involved who have a high stakes, because they might have a certain opinion. You just want to have also people involved who have no stake at all or think, oh, it's just interesting or something like that, that they don't try to guide you in a certain direction already. And that's why you have sometimes you make the power interest
Agreed.
grid from yeah, yeah. And that is also useful to understand from, oh yeah, is this are the stakeholders not only the right stakeholders, but also the variety of stakeholders. You see, variety for me is a keyword. Again. Yeah.
That's wonderful insights. I concur with you in practice. Um, if we were to say that technology impact assessment can happen jointly, what does jointly mean to you?
Yeah, jointly is very difficult wording for that because you have to ensure that you know what is meant with jointly, precise as you are asking me. I think jointly is something about doing things together, but
Mhm.
it's also about jointly having different opinion. So not doing things together, maybe the opposite of that. So jointly is a very broad concept in me, but at the end you have to do it jointly. It's not that you have different groups or different. You have to bring everything together. So jointly for me is also having diversity, but also integration. It's about bringing it together, integrating the parts of it. And jointly is also about having no consensus. Maybe a little bit strange, but it might be very important to have the foundations that people don't have any consensus and to have the variety in it, because then you might really understand the technology assessment and the impact on the long term because people think in different ways. Eh? That's why we discussed the short and the long term needs to be, or the very long term needs to be taken into account. It's the same with jointly. Eh? That means also jointly all the horizons need to be taken into account. So for me, jointly is a broad term, and you see that I try to interpret it on purpose in different ways to show that we have to also to take advantage of it, but also to take care of it to have the advantage of it. It's like a technology impact assessment.
Thank you, Marijn. Who do you think should be conducting technology impact assessments?
Ooh, another difficult question. Um, this, I think, is not about an individual. We just talk jointly,
Mhm.
but it's about groups. I think it should be not one person was determining everything or dominating or something like that. It's always about a group because you need to bring in the diversity in the groups. That's very important for that. So also, when you look at the requirements on such a group, you have to ensure that the team was doing the analysis has the required variety, and that there may be no consensus in it. Or maybe you won't even have a group, but also have a steering committee so they can
Mm.
think about it, and then you present your in between results, and then they give feedback of it. So it can have also those kinds of interactions can also be very important. It's a little bit dependent also on the methods that can be used and how much time you have. Like sometimes you're really under time pressure. They want to have results within 1 month. Oops, that's very fast, and you will have a completely different approach, and you have all kinds of limitations than when you have 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, which the ones I prefer to have, because then you do it really in a rigorous and detailed manner, and the value will be much higher at the end. But also more investments are needed because you need the resources, the time, the number of people. But it's always a team. It would be nice to have teams from different disciplines, different nationalities. Also here, again, the variety is important in my view.
This is all very thought-provoking commentary from you. We have been thinking about some models in Europe which have offices of technology assessment. The US used to have an office of technology assessment in the 80s, but they removed this. It had been there for a while, actually, since the 70s, but they removed this as unnecessary requirement in the 80s. So we are seeing different models of where TIAs are situated. But as you say, there are some things that don't change. This has to be a group effort, and depending on the context, we will know who will be involved. I think this is very wise words from you. Um, can I ask you, based on the information you just talked about regarding funding, long-term TIAs involving more people, and as opposed to fast turnaround, I need this in a month. Um, when should a technology impact assessment be done? And this is a leading question. I just want you to interpret it in what you were saying just now.
Yeah. Well, that's an easy one for me, but its answer is very difficult. I think it should be done continuously. So you shouldn't wait too long, because if you wait too long, all kinds of decisions might be made, and you might end up with yeah, things that already directing it or not, and you might have no influence on it. Where you want to really, for me, technology assessment is also about at the end about steering. It's not only about assessment, but it's also about governing and the use of it. So you should already do it early, something that is upcoming. Don't wait too long, but also it's changing over time, and that's why I also told before from we have it's better to have it over a long term, because then you can also take the changes into account for that. So that's I think that's why they might have in the past those groups where were doing it, because then you can continuously monitor it and report about it and taking care of it. And it's the same over here. And also groups might change, because at the beginning you might have involved other people. Then at the end there might be other persons involved, because you need the variety of stakeholders, the variety of views on it. And also, you might not be aware at the beginning what is important and what should be included for that. And later, you might be yeah, more focused, or it might be better, or you might conduct a study. Like we talked about AI, but you can also have AI for the impact on customs or risk management or something like that. So you can become more specific also. And that also requires another approach for that. We need them all, by the way, in my
Yes.
opinion, but it changes over time. And even if you think technology is there and we know what it is, it might still change. because there might be all kinds of things over there.
Thank you, Marijn. This is my second last question to you, and it has to do with the notion of peace and stability that can come through technology impact assessments. In our work, we're looking at bilateral and multilateral agreements between different nation states at the macro level and looking if there is shared technology or critical technologies, how we might, if I can use the term, manage them or be aware that our neighbors, our partner countries, our allies in our geopolitical buddies that are closely co-located to us, how we could work jointly towards a technology impact assessment. But how do you think TIA contributes to peace and stability in all of its manifestations?
I think it's a condition because you need it for it. And I didn't mention it before yet because this is a broad domain. But in my opinion, technology is not neutral. Eh? Technology has values embedded in it. They're made for a certain purpose. So if you have a different organization or a different developer, the technology might also appear in a different way over there. And that's why to have the focus on what you say, peace and stability, those type of values are essential because then you really start thinking long term. And at the beginning, you might think, oh, the technology might not help in that direction. But over time, when you think about the assessment and what you're doing it, you can guide it in the right direction, having the right values supported for that. From you can always use it in a different ways. At my university, how do you call it? The duality of technology is very important. You can use it for the good or for use for the bad. Well, we have we focus on improving the digital society. So we want to have it for the good, and we want to avoid that technology can also be used for the bad. And we want to avoid that we also do our research in that direction. I think it's the same over here. From if you want to have it for the peace, you might stability. I think that's crucial for our world in the future because we're so interconnected, we're so dependent on each other, and then we can say from where different geographical regions we are, but we together we form the whole world. So we need to do it together and ensure that we can, rely on each other on a certain foundation values. Of course, variety is fine. Eh? This diversity, what I said again, the diversity word is fine for me, but we need to work together. I think that's very important. We have to understand it, what we are doing, and how we want to do it. We are in a global society, and we all want to have peace and stability on the long term and help to improve. But we really have to think about the technology, the assessment, how we can do it, the guidings in it, and yeah, the policies are very important that can be derived from it. Therefore, I always see it as a whole process. Yeah, it's not. In the past, we had sometimes technology assessment was a single study. It's not a single study. It's much more about that. It's a whole process. It's about deriving outcomes in 10 or 20 years from now. In that way, whereas maybe 20 years ago we had separate disciplines for that, now it's much more interdisciplinary and long term, and well, it was also long term in the past. Maybe it's now shorter term even when you look at the practical things. But you mean it's what I meant is one the governance and the impact is much more part of it.
Thank you so much. My last question is the same for all our interviewees. Is there anything else you wish to add that you did not get an opportunity to talk about or elaborate on during the interview?
Well, I think what is important always is the way of thinking, the way people think in a certain way, and that determines also the culture, how they use it, what will be the impact of it. So we have to be sensitive for that. again, the diversity word, it's my new keyword today. Uh, for that, it's also important for that, but the cultural factors are important for that. So we have to go all the way from a high level from that we have the culture. We need policies over there, regulations we also need. In my view, it's all part of the impact assessment, because if there are regulations, you might view it in a different way. When there's non-regulations in a certain culture, the impact might be different than in another culture, those kind of things, to the whole bottom that we look at the technology that are part of it. And that's not easy. That is really not easy. And we have to acknowledge that it's not easy. I think that's very important. That's why I like the question also about jointly and about how to do it. Right, spot on.
Spot on. We have been spoiled by you in the last hour, Professor Marijn Janssen of TU Delft. Thank you so much for your time and your wisdom and your practice, both in this interview and more broadly in our academic domains across the world, including Government Information Quarterly and so many other conferences and journals you're a part of. But thank you so much for these insights.
You're welcome, and thank you for doing this research, because that will be also impactful, very important.
Thank you so much.